I'm Mark Clapp. I'm from Jamestown, about 80, 90 miles that way. I work with a company called Phoenix, and we kind of grew out of the fact that my hospital closed in Jamestown about 2019. I was the last stop to walk in, and I'm sort of here to talk about how that grew out of that and what we're doing. And we'd love to try to help you all, and that's really what this is about. But first of all, I sort of want to say why we've come to it, and maybe what we would do if it was us, since I've been trying to figure out how to do it in my house. The reason I haven't done it in Jamestown is because I can't get the real estate. That's the whole thing. So when our hospital closed, and if you turn to that first page, I'm just going to sort of walk us through. When my hospital closed, we had 3 questions, and everybody asked me, and since I'd owned some hospitals in Jamestown, they said, well, why don't you come and open up ours? And I tried. We couldn't get the real estate, still can't. But then the questions came, well, what are we going to do about the ER? What are we going to do about the hospital? And then what are we going to do if this is just an eyesore? Okay? Because, you know, if you close a hospital, there's not a lot else really to do with it. And now, in Jamestown, we have an ER that came out of UT. It's sort of a unique one-off situation. And so we have an ER, we have that emergency thing, which would be the equivalent of what we'd be talking about here. But we have a big eyesore for a hospital because it's not been open, and I don't see a thing that we're going to be able to do that in the near future. But when I was sort of going through and preparing this talk, I sent it up to a guy who's working with us in Lexington, and he said, you know, the question shouldn't have been, how do we restore the past? But it should have been, how do we change this failure into something that's a real success? Okay? And I had never thought about that when I was thinking in Jamestown, but I kind of like that idea, so I sort of think this is a way that we might be able to do that for you all. All right, there's 3 business structures that work for rural hospitals, okay? And the first one is traditional business like everybody does. Mr. Creekmore said he does sawmill work. Well, you take a thing into the sawmill, you pay him a certain amount for it, you got to fix it up, then you got to sell it and make revenue. It's just regular old business. Well, hospitals have that kind of business. They deal with an insurance company, make a deal with the insurance company pays them, or the patient pays them, or whoever pays them, and then you have to manage your cost to that. Okay? We call that in medicine a prospective payment system. Well, the problem is that's what the last 4 people that have run companies that have run your hospital have been run under. They get that system, and it's failed. Now, the Adventists didn't close your hospital, but they failed at the operation stage. They didn't leave because they were doing hunky-dory and everybody's making money. They left because they were struggling. Then I think a Catholic company called CHI took it over. Then we went to Renovo, which was the one that closed my hospital, and then Boavita. And basically, how much money they brought in did not equal how much they had to pay out, and so they closed. That's where it goes. I think if you do that again, it's real likely to fail again, because I don't see a way to make those hospitals work, and I have owned 3 of them in the past. We made them work then. I don't know how to make them work today. Okay? Critical access. Really great idea, a great program. In Tennessee, it pays for cost. So whatever the service costs you, you break even on Medicare and TennCare for Tennessee. But the problem is you got a lot of Kentucky Medicaid that comes across and doesn't pay very well here. And you also got a lot of Medicare Advantage plans which don't pay very well. And when we came through that process of how do we do critical access, I don't think critical access works very well today, but most importantly, I don't have the information to help you make the decision because I don't think the information is available to put it in the proformas to see if critical access will work. Now, as I say later on, I think it might be a solution in Jellico. I just think it's got a lot of risk as we go through it. And also, we'll have to get some exemptions from the state to truly pull that off, and I don't believe those exemptions have been granted. You have to be designated critical access, and your access by interstate primarily to Corbin kind of makes you have a struggle with it. Do I think they could fight the battle and get it approved? Yes. Do I think I can do it? We'll have to leave the hospital closed for that whole period of time while you're waiting to get the designation. So critical access not. The one we recommend is the next one, which is Rural Emergency Hospital. Basically what that is a government program which pays a monthly check. That monthly check sort of makes up for the losses everybody encounters when you run an emergency room. All emergency rooms lose money, okay? Nobody runs a freestanding emergency room in a small town like this. They all lose money. So they invented this program, or created this thing, this rural emergency hospital, which basically makes up for the losses. That gets you a lot of the services that you really want in town. It gets you your ER back. It gets you radiology at a different level, like you can get ultrasound in town and you can get CT in town. That's what, when you see that term advanced radiology, it's more than just the chest x-ray you get it. You also get lab. And if I was a doctor practicing in your town, to be able to send someone to the hospital for lab, so that like if they were having chest pain, I could get the emergency lab for a troponin, would be really valuable. And most doctors' offices don't have that. If we bring this back, you would be able to have lab be sent to the hospital. So I really like that. I think it's the first and best step to take as a town, is to start the rural emergency hospital. If you start a rural emergency hospital, I think whoever comes ought to see about whether you want to do critical access as a transition out of that. Your hospital was really big. I came here in 1988 as a part of 88 as a part of my residency. You guys may not remember, but I worked with a guy named Scott Lilligridge, and I worked with Dr. Miller. He probably delivered some of the people in the room. That's how long that's been. But they kind of inspired me to go do what I did. But you were doing 200, 220 deliveries a year, I think, at that time. So you have a lot of volume that would use this hospital. Does that make sense? And so I think there is sort of more to do here, but the first thing you got to do is get back to saving lives, and ER save lives. Okay? I know in my town that I have been to funerals of people who died because we didn't have an ER, because I was the ER doctor that saved their life for the same thing before. Okay, so ER save lives. So I think rural emergency hospital is the plan I would take. Well, what would be the plan I would make for success? Well, the first thing is you got to confirm that you can be REH. My understanding is that when the last group sort of left, they weren't really sure whether you could get the rural designation. You got to get the rural designation so you'll qualify as an REH. And then after that, you got to proceed with the process. You got to open the hospital back up. You got to get the licensures done. You have to go through surveys, and you have to get all the things that go with it. There's a lot of red tape, but I think the REH will do real well. Then you just open up the REH, and we try to make it a functional business. We start doing the things that would be done here, and that's ER lab, advanced radiology, like that ultrasound you had done. I bet you can't get that in town unless you happen to have an OB who does it here. Okay? But you could get that at the hospital if you didn't have it. So you run this hospital for 6 months. What do you do then? And I took a tour with the mayor, and basically what you've got in the basement of that hospital, or the first floor, I'm not sure how you refer, but the bottom of it is a functional ER right now, right? And that's what everybody uses. You also have lab and x-ray at the function. So the bottom floor works pretty well. It's been used pretty recently, so it's functional. You move up to the top floor, and you got a lot of work to do. We looked at it, and it looks like maybe there's $1 million of work to do on the top floor. Okay? Got heat and air that needs to be replaced. We're just sort of ticking off talking to the maintenance folks, and I don't say that I would guarantee what that is, but at 6 months you got to figure out, okay, so I've established an ER. What am I going to do with the rest of that 30,000 square feet that used to be the rest of the hospital? Okay? And you kind of need to look at, one is, do you want to go back to do a critical access hospital, or is that something that's not feasible? Today we don't have that data. We couldn't make that decision. And so what are we going to do with the rest of the building? You've got the rural emergency hospital that's there. I think you ought to start surgery. Okay? Now, whatever you do on that second top story is going to require that $1 million investment before you do much. You can't really start surgery when the heat and air doesn't work on the top. Okay? But I think surgery, if you get it up in functional, whether that's in critical access or whether that's as another business of the REH, works. And I think it would fund both all the improvements and be a profit center. So I think it could make those top story work if we just reintroduce surgery. I did surgery as an independent. I'm one of the few family docs in the state of Tennessee that's ever done a surgery center. And I think we could make a very productive facility, or you guys can make it, or whoever comes. I'm sort of doing both things here. I think you ought to be advised on what to do. I would do surgery as the second thing. then figure out whether we need to do critical access, and then you got to do the upgrades, because both critical access and surgery require the $1 million upgrades to your building. Next page is, why am I doing Phoenix? 2019, my hospital closed. I was the last doctor to walk out, and that day I felt like half of me died. When your hospital closes and you're a doc that's been there since 1990, it's 2019, that picture of that delinquent building there is where 2 of my children were born, where I held hands when people died, where I delivered 1,500 children. It was just like half of me died. I went through severe depression and anxiety, and then I said, I'm pissed off, I'm going to go figure out how I can fix this problem. Well, you can't fix the problem if you can't buy the real estate. And so what we basically said is, since we can't fix ours, let's go help some other folks. And we have been pursuing the ideas. Mainly, we want to try to do it through critical access, because we thought that was a better idea. I don't think that works as an immediate idea for you all. So what does Phoenix mean as a partner? We've got hospital management experience, surgery center startup, which I think is sort of the second quality you need. We're doing rural health interactively. One of the really unique things is I'm still an active ER doc. Now, I haven't practiced in 2 months, because for the last 2 months we've been chasing around doing meetings and writing performance and trying to fix rural hospitals. But me and one of my other partners are ER docs. If you talk about one of the major glitches in restarting a small ER is who's going to staff it. Okay? You probably got local nurses that you can entice, but local docs are a little bit different. I'm not saying we want to come and work. I'm saying when you need us, we're here. The money to fix the process and get started is available. I talked to my fundraising guy, and he's already basically got the funds that I think we'll need to get this arranged and ready to do it. I think we are all rural. And what I mean by that is almost all of us have lived in towns of less than 5,000 people for an extended period of time. Almost everybody on our team is from a small town. We understand poverty, because I lived in it. Jamestown's one of the most impoverished places in the state. I also know the cost of losing your hospital, because I lost mine. So what I would propose as a plan, or thought as a plan, and I'll take questions in a minute, I think you need a rural emergency hospital. I think that takes 3 to 6 months. If we were, whoever starts, I don't think you do it that quickly, because it's just a lot of paperwork and process you got to go through. So ASAP is 3 to 6 months for this particular thing. I think once you get the REH, you decide, are we going to do critical access with information? You've got to figure out how to do the maintenance and the upgrades to the facility. You need to open surgery. I think the surgery will provide the funding that is needed to make the building successful and pay for it. And the last comment, work with the city for the best possible win-win financial management. That is actually written by the guy who's raising me money. That wasn't written by me. He really wants to come, and he really wants to help, and is driven by that. So if we work together, we're very mission-oriented. We want to save rural hospitals, and if you guys need our advice or suggestion and somebody else picks this, we'd be happy to help with that, even because we want to save rural hospitals from closing, because I'm trying to figure out how to use that disaster that happened in my life to help others. We're passionate about this. We're rural, we're doers. We think we got the funding to reopen your hospital and create a thriving institution. And we have no exit strategy. And what I mean by that is the person, I don't plan on really retiring in the classic sense, but when you're 63, you know the day is coming. But I don't have an exit strategy besides to hand it over to someone else to continue. We're not planning on flipping or anything like that. That's not our goal. Our goal is to fix rural hospitals. So I'll entertain questions if you got any.